The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay, it's 8 o'clock. I'll call the Whitley County Redevelopment Commission regular meeting, December the 10th, 2024, to order. This time I'll take roll call. Theresa Baysinger.
Present.
Frank Kessler.
Present.
Mike Schrader.
Here.
John Myers.
Present.
Jill Western.
Here.
And I'm here. Okay, we're going to jump down to broadband status and update.
I thought we might have an agreement to sign, but it needs a little polishing. I wanted to do that today just so they could get going in case we don't meet in 2 weeks. But they've already started the work in good faith. So Andy and Zach got to clean it up a little bit, and it'll be ready for you to sign. But we're not holding anything up.
Essentially, just in terms of changes, we wanted to make sure that all the references were correctly towards the Redevelopment Commission, and we wanted to add some language so that it made clear the use of TIF funds and whatnot throughout. So really, it's in premise, we can put our stamp on, but we just wanted to make sure that it's fine-tuned and specific to the RDC. So Andy has those in process. I believe we received the copy yesterday, so we're fast-tracking that so we can get that prepared.
Okay, good.
Dale, are they still going to give us a mapping of their coverage areas?
They've got a preliminary map, and I can copy everybody on that. But that's what the study is also going to make sure the towers they pick get the coverage they've kind of promised. And what's also nice is I believe they're going to have 2 towers up in western Allen County working, and that'll also just be a nice kind of dry run on how the Tirana stuff is working. But in good faith, they've already started the feasibility study.
Just make sure they get some towers put up
Yes.
there. Or we'll come back in and have another meeting. Anything else on the update, Dale? Okay, we'll move on then. Billboard lease renewal.
So, Andy had given us a copy of the annual, well, not annual, but the renewal for one of the billboards on the Niedermeyer property. I don't know, do you have the amount?
So there's an addendum that was presented to, I don't know to whom, but presented. Essentially, there's 2 leases, and they renew each for 3 years terms if they're not terminated. One, unfortunately, is past the notice window, but we've been presented with an addendum that would change the lease term from a 3-year repeating term to a 15-year term, but the amount would increase from, I believe, $700 to $800 in the first six years, and then it'd go up to $800 and then $900 a year. So there's a little bit more increase on the rent side, but the lease term would change for a longer period of time. That's on the one, and then there's another one that there's still a little bit of time left that we could provide notice if there was desire to negotiate or change the terms to. I understand there's been some terms thrown around as to now that the RDC's in control of the property as to what you would like to see on those terms. But I believe that one would end at the end of this month. So, if we do have that next meeting, that would probably be an apt time that we would want to approve that language if we did want to change that second billboard lease.
So, what are your thoughts?
I'm personally against renewing either of them if we can avoid it. I think our focus now that we have the property should be to get it ready to market, and we don't know at this point what a developer or a tenant may want to do with that frontage. The lease amount is $700 a year is not going to make us or break us either way. Mm-hmm. And I just think it's a complication that we really don't need at this point, but I'm willing to hear what others think.
So then did the first lease automatically renew for 3 years?
Yeah, but there still is an addendum on the table, so if we wanted to addend, but if it sounds that we wouldn't want to extend the lease, then you probably wouldn't want to enter into a 15-year term.
Right.
So we're still sitting with a 3-year on the one
first
one billboard, yeah.
Okay.
I kind of agree with you, Frank. I think we ought to just do away with them and be done with it, make it clean.
I agree.
Agreed.
John?
Okay. Sounds like we have an agreement.
Okay, kind of follow-up question then, if we don't renew the lease for the billboard, is the billboard company going to remove the actual sign itself, or would there be a possibility they could retain it for a sign to be used for a future development?
Yeah, my understanding is that they would remove the sign. That's what it says in the lease, or at least in the one lease that we reviewed. Somebody else would review the one that's still intact, that you could terminate now. But I believe that they're identical. It's the same tenant essentially. But we could inquire as to negotiating those terms too as well, if that's something that is of interest.
Yeah, maybe on the one that is already renewed for 3 years. Of course, we did, we'd collect the lease money, but then have to pay the advertising company for whatever the fee is for using that board.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think we should, if we're not really interested in renewing, we should go ahead and give Carson Boxberger the authority to go ahead and give notice on the second lease. So we check that off and then address the lease that's already renewed at a future meeting,
Okay.
depending on what our options are.
I'll make a motion that we do not renew the lease on the one that expires this month, and that we have our attorneys look further into the one that's already renewed to see what other options we can come up with.
I second that.
Okay, we got a first and second. Further discussion on that? Dale, what's your opinion? I'd like to know what.
Well, I would like at some point, once we actually name the site or whatever for marketing, because I wouldn't mind having a sign up there, the kind of way we did originally for Rail Connect, the way Park 30 did. And this might, getting rid of this billboard lease, I think is the start for that.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I think we need something out there to let people know that we have ground available. But yes, I'm in favor of getting rid of it. Okay, we have a first and second. Any further discussion? There being none, all them in favor, raise your right hand. All them opposed, the same. Let it show that it passed.
It is, okay.
Okay, it's okay, go with that presentation.
Yep.
Okay, next on the agenda, we'll go to the annual presentation to the underlying tax units.
Okay, so this satisfies our statutory requirement to present annual financial report to underlying taxing units, and there should be enough extras for whoever in the audience may want some. Since we don't actually have any, yeah, Jill needs one. Since we don't have any underlying taxing unit representatives here. And as you recall, we try and do this in December after we've set our budget and starting with this year, our spending plan. So you guys know what TIF is. and how it works and so on, and our list of existing TIF districts in the county, our 3 districts that we have in your authority. Okay, so this is where the actual numbers start. Remember that for 2025, starting in 2024, we started to break apart the overall budget into allocation to or appropriation to each one of the individual TIF districts. We've finalized that for 2025, so there is some discrepancy between when you compare 24 and 25 because of that. But this is our comparison here for Union TIF and Iotron TIF. Technically, Iotron is a subset of the Union TIF. It's a designated taxpayer. So for accounting purposes and budget purposes, it's separate. But for development purposes and application, it's part of Union TIF. So again, won't go through everything in great detail because I think everybody here has seen these numbers before, at least some of them. But the bottom line, 2025 budget for the Union TIF winds up being just over $7 million as opposed to 2024, which was 6.3. The largest difference there is in the increase in consulting and engineering and capital improvement costs, dealing with our expected infrastructure projects, our 100 South, 600 East projects primarily. Rail Connect TIF, identical here in terms, wait, no. How the heck is that identical? We went down 2.1 million yet, okay, that bottom line on the 2025 budget is not correct. So it's $120,000 budget for 2025 as opposed to 2024, which was 2.2 million. The difference being that we dropped out a lot of construction costs, capital improvement, contracted services, and so on, because we're pretty much done with Rail Connect for the time being in terms of development. Still potential that we will need to revisit that as we put a road through to the west whenever the Heinen property gets developed. Remember that we've reserved ourselves that right-of-way at the south edge of auto leave. So this will be revisited at some point, but right now we're going to have a fairly minimum number, with the major thing being the potential for training grants. So from a source or Triad or somebody wants to have a training grant, that's been appropriated here. Larwill TIF, 150,000. This is identical to 2024. Very minimal amounts, very nominal amounts coming in terms of increment. With Red Star's expansion, we can start to see that go up over the next couple of years, but still, for the foreseeable future, these are going to be fairly small numbers, covering engineering costs, whatever, for small projects in and around Larwill. Once we start to see some development occurring, then we can talk about other incentives and that. This is our spending plan, and it is very tiny to read, but as you recall, the spending plan is basically a restatement of the budget overall, because redevelopment commissions aren't required to have budgets. They are required to have spending plans. Since we already do a budget, our spending plan is basically our budget plus some in order to cover our authorization to spend, basically. And this was filed with the state back November 20th or so. So we are good with the state in that regard. Bottom line total spending plan is 7.7 million, a little over that. And again, that's authorization to spend, that's not complete intention of spending that total amount. But if we had all sorts of projects line up perfectly, that's where we wind up. Review of the existing expenditures for this year, out of just 4,500 redevelopment. Tiff, you want to go over what that actually means?
Sure. Excuse me. So this is going to be any expenditures that we had, and if you remember, this is a fund that really has no money in it. It was kind of the general of redevelopment. So we went ahead and paid your guys' board member stipends out of there, as well as the bonds that we have to have for you. And then we ended up doing a transfer, if you remember, that you all signed to move money to cover that. So we had $48.50 spent out of your general fund, if you want to call it. And then for your union TIF, where most of your expenditures come from, you're going to see what was appropriated and what was actually spent here. So
There's no reason to put a line item in there just for that.
I mean, the line item's there, but we don't have any money. I think Nathan said that usually the only way to do that is if council would like to, say, take $100,000 from general fund, seed it somewhere, put it in there to be able to spend down.
And because we have such good interest rates right now, it may be like board member stipends, you put in a base amount and just pay the board members out of the interest each following year. So it may be a one-time thing, might be a way of doing it. But again, right now, doing transfers is a mechanism to do it. We're just trying to set this up so that in the future, when those funds do become available, we can set this up and better align with what the code calls for. Not that we're doing it wrong, they're just better ways of doing it too.
Looks like he's got broke down for your Rail Connect.
Yeah, Rail Connect didn't have any explicit expenditures out of it so far this year. As I just discussed, there's not much for us to do. There may be some legal, there could have been some legal costs in dealing with some of the transfers or something like that, but that hasn't come to fruition yet.
And next you've got your Iotron.
Iotron is all related back to the bonds for that designated taxpayer status.
And Larwill, obviously, we haven't had any expenditures from. We are sitting on 22,000, just shy of 23,000 in Larwill. So I know, shocked. We did settlement from June, put about 16,000 in December was just shy of 5,000. So we do have a cash balance going in there now. So.
Yeah, that's one thing that I don't have is the current balances for
I
each
do.
one of the districts, so,
Mhm.
okay. The last slide will cover what we've had as increment for the year. Current and recent projects funded by TIF revenues. I won't go over these, you guys know what we've done. This was more for the audience's benefit if we had people, but there's our list. Fire protection services is called out specifically because you know we're now just paying Union Township directly for their operating costs, services, as opposed to specific capital improvements, and that was because of changes to the state statute. We did acquire Niedermeyer. That was a big investment there for the development side. Additional vocational and training grants, additional training grants. That's one thing we haven't seen a training grant all year, I don't think.
I mean, we had one for Ultra, which reminds me, I gotta find out why they haven't submitted any reimbursement requests.
Infrastructure, upcoming infrastructure projects, sewer extensions, always a potential. Railroad crossing improvements, particularly associated with the Schrader property potential. Most notably, a change for 2025 and going forward, road improvements due to US 30, as US 30 is now being committed to, or at least plans being committed to, that will affect us and what the heck we're doing with the roads. So those projects will definitely be something that the Redevelopment Commission is involved with. And then we've got the development of Project Freedom, the Niedermeyer property, and Schrader property as they come up. Finally, statute says we have to do a summary of the impacts to taxing units, and so that's what this slide shows. Hypothetically, if the 2024 property tax distributions that the increment that went to our TIF districts, which is in the left table, approximately 2.8 million coming from Union, 225,000 from Rail Connect, 131 from Iotron, which again gets fed back into Iotron, and Larwill had a gross total of about $20,000, yielding 3.1 million. If that 3.1 million were reallocated according to the current taxing rates, the right-hand table is how that would break down. That assumes that there is no maximum levy cap, so the state just allows all of that money to flow through, which is probably not going to happen. But hypothetically, if they did, the school, WCCS, would get approximately $2.2 million. The county would get $813,000. Whitco, $8,700. The town of Larwill itself, approximately $6,000. But keep in mind, the Larwill TIF actually covers both the incorporated area of Larwill and unincorporated area. So exactly how that breaks out is a little different. And then the townships and schools also get additional funds there too. But again, that's really hypothetical, but if that were to happen, that's how it would shake out. The state may allow a one-time max levy increase or something else. That's something that I don't think anybody in the state has really had occur yet, to really define what happens when a TIF just suddenly ends and have 100% pass through. Have yet to find an example of that. So, and then TIF, you want to give the total balances?
Sure.
Since you have them?
So we have in your union TIF, your $8,780,000 and some change. Your Rail Connect, we have just shy of $3 million. Your Iotron Union, that one is $208,000. And Larwill is your $22,658. And then there is also, you've got that Series A with $399,000 left that we're trying to spend out.
Anybody have any questions?
Yes, could you refresh my memory on when these individual TIFs expire?
I always have to look that up, so I don't have the annual report. I think the first one is in 2034. And Rail Connect then comes soon after, but I'd have to get back with you on that. It is they are listed in the annual report, so if you want to look that up.
34 sounds right.
Yeah, 34, 37, I think, for Union and Rail Connect. Larwill doesn't have an expiration yet because it's set upon 20 years from the date of first obligation, so we have yet to issue any obligation to it.
And the Iotron one
Iotron
goes away when that bond is complete?
That's my understanding, yeah. But being a subset of Union, you also have that expiration in there as well.
Of 2034.
Yeah. I think it was actually 10 years from the date of first obligation, which puts you at 2033 or so.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else on it?
Okay.
Thanks, Nathan. Okay, we'll move on to project updates as needed. Niedermeyer property,
You want me to give the update?
you go right ahead.
We met with Jim Bayman out there last week to go over some of the personal property stuff that was in the house and whatnot. And his determination is that it would cost as much, if not more, to do an auction than we would make off of the items that were in there. So it was just kind of determined to not, that it's not really valued. The barn thing, I know that Todd has had some.
Yeah, I sent notice to Todd Geiger with the extension office. He is forwarding on the offer of the barn and sheds, if they're interested, to the full 4-H extension board. They may know somebody, they may want it itself. I think it would be awesome to have the barn over there next to the Ag Museum. Being an Ag Museum, it seems like it would fit, and the topography there fits a bank barn really well. But they are pressed for space on the 4-H grounds too. So I'm sure it'll be of high interest and a lot of discussion for them. But that's going to take a while. I'm not sure if they're meeting in December or not, so he'll let us know what their thoughts are on that. Again, if we can give this off to a nonprofit or another government agency, saves us all of the hassle of going out for bid and so on.
I do want to do a little more update on the personal items. Jim Bayman had suggested reaching out to Mom and Hank and some antique dealers to possibly take a look at it and some of that personal property and possibly make an offer on some of that stuff. So.
Yeah, there are enough individual items in there that recouping some of the cost is there. But again, trying to sell everything is by auction. Just the auction fees would be more than what we'd receive.
Any questions on that? Okay, how about the Freedom 600 East Connection project?
So I've started building conceptual alignments for the different alternatives that we've talked about, which would be, there's that driveway halfway between, Lear and Chromosource there. We've talked about using that as one of our starting points and going straight to the east or curving around the hill. I did notice that if we moved 80 feet south of there, we would line up with the quarter section, and we could essentially call the road 225 south. And that would put it kind of on grid if people care about that. And I'll include that as another one of the alignments. There is room if we acquire any right away from the triangular wooded piece or the field continuing to the east, that we could go straight through with said 225 east and just make a straight connector between 600 and 700. One thing that will decide how it's designed moving forward is selection of a design speed, and that would also ultimately be the posted speed for the new road, which, since this is a new road, we can decide the speed now based on context and anticipated use and density. For reference, Park 30 is posted at 40 miles an hour, and that seems like stay consistent. It's a similar type road, similar use, and we can move forward with that. Or we could design it to 55 miles an hour and leave it unposted. The only trouble with that is in the future, we want to reduce the speed, we'd have to do a study, and we'd have a road that's designed for 55 miles an hour that people are comfortable driving 55 miles an hour on. That we then tell them you have to drive 40 miles an hour. So I didn't know, I wanted to open it up to see if anybody had thoughts to decide now or continue moving forward.
think the 40 sounds good.
I think we can keep the traffic off of Lincoln Way. That's gonna be the best thing we could do.
Yeah, which is.
Right, Dale?
From the planning meeting, which I think so too. But bringing up that triangular property, I should have made a comment on this earlier. I think it might be worth our time to at least, that property owner to be willing to work with us on an option. I'd hate for us to not have control over that triangular piece of property if he on his own decided to sell it to somebody else. So, I mean, I think we should kind of start thinking about maybe getting some appraisals and, like I said, just do an option with it. It's not something you have to vote on or think about today for the commission, but I would like you to start wrapping your head around that.
Be a convenient spot for regional stormwater detention since it's already pond.
You said they didn't have to, but I'm gonna suggest, if you wanna authorize getting appraisals and discussing that, we have funds appropriated. Probably not a bad idea to keep this ball rolling.
And you've had conversations with them?
Brent
has?
Yeah.
Yeah, how many appraisals
We
Have to have two.
do we need? 2?
Yeah, we need to.
And how long are they good for?
I don't know if there is, I don't recall there being an expiration.
They may have one in their own report,
I would
perhaps.
probably imagine it's, the appraisers would say this is good for 30, 90 days or something like that.
Yeah, they'd have to be somewhat time sensitive, otherwise, you know,
Yeah,
2,
it
3
could
years
go
down
5
the road,
years,
things are
sure.
gonna change.
Yeah. But I think it's reasonable to figure out what we might be looking at. Are we looking at $200,000 for that wooded area, or are we looking at 1.2 million? I have no idea. So that may change the picture of whether you look at an option versus buying outright and so on. Or passing on it entirely.
Quite frankly, I think, you know, we're this far into the project, and since it sounds like it could serve a couple different purposes in the development, for the relatively low cost of getting a couple of estimates on it, I think it's probably worth pursuing.
Well, I think we gotta keep moving on it. That's my opinion with it, so.
Yeah, let's don't become stagnant, let's keep it going.
Right.
Yeah, can't
So
do
we need a
that.
motion on that?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that we go ahead and get 2
Appraisals.
appraisals on it.
Second.
Okay, we've got a first and second. Any further discussion? There being none, all in favor, raise your right hand. All of them opposed, the same. Let us show that it passed.
Okay.
100 South Paving.
I'm continuing to poke along on that one too. I've got the corridor model set up, and right now the main design constraint is making sure the new edges of the pavement line up nicely vertically with the driveway, so that we have the least amount of driveway rework as possible. And so it kind of takes a little bit of working backwards to find out what the driveway elevations are, and then figure out what the center of the road should be based on those. It's just slow and tedious work at that point.
Okay.
And then figure out how to get it to look nice on paper.
Any questions on that? About Schrader's?
No update.
No update? Rogers Market,
None there either.
Larwill.
What do I have from Larwill? Do you have a update somewhat on the zoning violation in Larwill? All the stuff stored out there along the railroad track. They're promising to clean it up by the end of the year. The wife is promising that she will get the husband to clean it up by the end of the year, which seems to be the whole disconnect in this process, because she is the point of contact, but he's the one whose stuff it is. So between us, the health department, and the town itself, we're aiming for that goal, but not hopeful that it will be met either.
What property is it?
West side of 5 there at the railroad track, the one with all the stuff stored on it, and the used to have 2 trailers parked there and only have 1. Have a disassembled box truck on it now. Used to be a whole box truck, now it's disassembled.
Okay. Well, it's progress.
It's something. Seriously though, they did make a decent amount of progress. They removed a trailer. Some of the stuff that was in the trailer went with it. So it's just very start and stop. So town's very keen on getting that cleaned up. So not really totally relevant to you guys, but it's stuff happening in the town.
Any more Larwill, John?
Not that I'm aware of. Ken, how about you?
No, pretty quiet. About the walkthroughs?
Looking to get into Red Star in January. I'm still working on a date. Nobody really wanted to do anything in December.
Okay. Okay, we'll move on to miscellaneous matters. Well, then we'll do claims. Right, Treasurer?
Okay. First claim is Carson LLP. Professional services through November 30th. $744. And the second one is from Whitley County EDC for services for the fourth quarter, $10,000.
Is that it?
Pardon?
Yes, that's it.
Okay.
I would move that we approve both claims.
Second.
The first and second, any further discussion on the claims?
Can I see him?
Sorry.
No, I just.
They were underwhelming, so
Yeah.
decided to keep them for myself.
There being none, all them in favor, raise your right hand. All them opposed, the same. Show that it passed.
Do you look okay?
They do. I take this job very
I
seriously.
know you do, you do.
Well, this is kind of a shock here. We do have some minutes to approve.
Hey, you know,
I love you.
thank you. I think a faster way to get those done is probably to have you do them, Kim. Then they would be
Really?
more, I mean, you're welcome to.
I thought it was the secretary's job.
Yeah.
We don't have that much time,
Either
John.
way. He's not even listening.
He's not even listening.
Or ignored.
He heard it, he was just ignoring it.
Has everybody had a chance to look over the minutes from November the 26th? Jill? They good?
She can let me know later if there's things I need to fix.
Oh, okay.
right?
Yeah.
Not really.
You'd
but-
rather have her do that than on, okay.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be on video.
No.
I entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move that we accept the meeting minutes of November 26th as presented.
Okay, we have a first.
Second.
We got a second. Any further discussion? There being none, all in favor, raise your right hand. All them opposed, the same. Does anybody in the audience have anything?
Just an update on the Radio Road property. The board has voted to move ahead with that pending all of the environmental tests coming back clean, which so far they have. And they hope to close on it by the end of the month, by the end of the year. And we're so excited because we can have some of our students start on the renovation and have them already involved in making that into a viable property for the school. So we're very excited about it. Plus it's saving millions of dollars by acquiring this property as opposed to our original plan, which was to construct a new facility on the property adjoining to the high school. But this is close enough. And then we're also very hopeful of the trail being completed, which will go behind this building and connect to the school. So we know we'll be providing some bus transportation back and forth between the buildings, but also that will be that path that can be used too. So I think it's a great project for the community, and we're, like I said, we're very excited about it.
Thank you, Joe. Have anything else out there? Mike?
Next meeting, is it going to be on Monday if we have one, on the 23rd?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah, it's scheduled for the 23rd is the regular meeting.
Okay.
Nobody wanted to be here on the 24th for some reason.
John?
Got nothing.
Theresa?
Nothing.
Frank?
Nothing further.
Kim, you guys?
I have nothing, but I want to wish you all Merry Christmas in case we don't get back here. But appreciate everything you've done this past year, so thank you.
Thank you.
That being said, we're adjourned.